Now under Unai Emery, Aston Villa produced some of the most exciting football seen at Villa Park in years. Big wins against top six side and a confident run in Europe showed the club's growing stature and their intent to challenge at the top end of the table. Key players like Ollie Watkins and Youri Tielemans delivered consistently, while Villa's home form became a fortress. With their incredible Champions League run, this campaign will go down as one of the most memorable in the club's recent history. We spoke to Charlie Haffenden of BirminghamWorld to reflect on Aston Villa's best moments from a season that reignited belief across the fan base.
Charlie, looking at Aston Villa, and let's start by looking across the season, maybe a bit of a reflection of a season that promised so much and maybe just fell short at the last moments, but still, some incredible history set with their return to the Champions League and, those incredible nights against, Bayern Munich and PSG as well. Obviously, the season moved so fast and it did end in slight disappointment, but they will still be competing in Europe next season with high ambitions under Unai Emery, I'm sure. Let's start with the best moment in terms of Villa's season, or moments or sort of period, because they had that run where they were sort of unstoppable. Maybe you can touch on the January window as well. That was remarkable. That took a lot of people by surprise with the signings they got in, and they were going big. So what sort of stands out as the best moment for Aston Villa fans this season?
I think it's difficult to pick just one, to be honest. The Champions League run was just incredible. Qualifying for it in the first place was such an achievement. I think even if Villa got knocked out in that league phase, they wouldn't have been too disappointing, because at least they would have had the opportunities to play within it. Playoffs would have been good enough, finishing between 9th and 24th, but finishing the top 8 was just absolutely incredible. And that win over Bayern Munich at Villa Park towards the start of that run was such an incredible night. To remain unbeaten at Villa Park throughout the entire Champions League campaign, incredible. The same could be said in the Premier League as well, apart from the opening. The first home game in the season against Arsenal that they lost, they were undefeated in every single game at Villa Park, so that's a real achievement. I think that PSG game, the second leg, even though they went out on aggregate, just a fight to get back into that game after going 1-0 down so early, to win it 3-2, the atmosphere was absolutely unbelievable. It's difficult to pick out just one moment, as I say, but the January window, as you kind of touched upon, with Marcus Rashford, Marco Asensio coming in, these are transfers that fans just wouldn't have been able to imagine even a couple of years ago when Unai Emery first came in. So really on the rise, so much to be positive about, even if they did miss out on the Champions League qualification at the end.
Yeah, in terms of worst moments, or sort of moments to maybe brush past and forget, the FA Cup run was fantastic, and you maybe thought going into that semi-final against Crystal Palace that their poor form against Palace wouldn't continue, yet it did. Palace were incredible on the day, and Villa sort of went home thinking, we were possibly dreaming of lifting the Champions League, and if not, then maybe the FA Cup in terms of a trophy this season. And then it slowly, ever so quickly went out the window for them and Unai Emery, and then the attention turns to getting Champions League qualification, and they just fall short on the final day in controversial fashion as well at Old Trafford. But surely maybe looking at the season and thinking could have been very much closer to lifting a bit of silverware.
Yeah, I think there's kind of 3 periods or moments that stand out. There was one period where Villa kept 2 clean sheets in 23 matches. Emi Martinez was not in form at that period. The defence not in form at all. Pau Torres was out for 2.5 months with a broken metatarsal. But then they managed to keep many clean sheets towards the end of the season. They went on such a great winning streak, and they very nearly clinched that Champions League football at the last moment. I think if you look at 10 games to go in the season, you wouldn't have expected them to be in the fight for the top 5, but they got into that position, and if they just managed to get 1 point against Man United at Old Trafford, they would have got into it. And that is kind of the second of the 3 moments I'm talking about, is that game at Old Trafford. Such a disappointment. All they needed to do was their own job, because the other results elsewhere ended up going their way. No silverware, no Champions League, but the fact that they've managed to stay in these races, they've managed to have decent progression, lots of competitions, and been so close, I think it just shows that Villa are on this trajectory for a long time now, and not just briefly.